We're live. We're live.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Let's see what.
Welcome to the Zocalo. Yeah. Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific. We are here to talk anything and everything on form. And no, I got that wrong. Okay, I
You
guess I'm
are?
Norm tonight. I'm Norm and you're Shar. That's what
Hello.
we're doing tonight. Wow.
Hi.
You see what happens when I do because I'm making a little stronger of a drink. We're just going to throw that in. We'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, thank you all for joining us. We've got a great show tonight. We're going to be talking about Legend of the Rangers, the little pilot that couldn't.
Yeah, unfortunately not. And it has, I think the epitaph for a lot of things that happened with Babylon 5 post the proper 5 seasons was it was always kind of like the projects that could have, but never really materialized.
Oh, the projects that could have been. Yeah, a lot of opportunities, a lot of tries, and none of them really Crusade included.
Mm.
And now this. So we're going to focus on that today. And for those of you who are joining us for the very first time, we do everything related to Babylon 5. We take a comprehensive look at all things encompassing this universe. We discuss everything once every Wednesday night. And we love having your comments. We like to include them into the show. So if you're here, please say hi, like John Bauer Socks. How you doing, buddy? And yeah, we'd like to have a conversation with you, as well as if you don't catch this live, that's okay. We'll talk to you after the show.
Yeah, this is our second show that we're have broadcast on this new YouTube channel. We're using a new platform called StreamYard, which seems to be working for us really well. And
Yay.
we're very excited because now like all of our shows are going to be hosted here on YouTube. I'm still working on trying to import our previous shows because we did 30 shows before we came to this YouTube channel. But we want to grow this YouTube channel. We want this to be kind of like our destination spot for all of our listeners and all of our fans out there. Emily's joined us. Here's a funny thing, Shar. It's like
Emily.
I belong to a bunch of other groups, and I know group aliases from Facebook, and then their aliases are different on Twitter, and then their aliases are even more different on YouTube. For some other reason, they just seem to have all these different interpretations of their social media presence.
Yeah, that account you signed up for back in 2008, when you were in middle school or wherever, and, I'm so and so 1010 or whatever it might be. And it's one of those things where like you stick with it all the years as they pass, and it doesn't, I don't know, it just is.
I'm not throwing away my MySpace account. This Facebook thing will never take off. MySpace for life.
MySpace. I loved MySpace back in the day.
Well, back in the day.
Back in the day, in like 2005.
Really, right?
It was the thing. Facebook was not much of a thing, not unless you were going to Harvard.
This is true. And not until that time. Shar, you spoiled at the beginning of the show that before we do our celebratory toast to welcome everybody here, what's going on with your red Solo cup?
I've got something new going on, so I'm pretty excited about it. I have a new kind of martini I'm trying out tonight.
Whoa.
Last time we were at Bevmo, which was last weekend, my husband and I, we discovered pomegranate schnapps.
My goodness.
And I am a sucker for two things. Anything flavored with pomegranate or blood orange. So that immediately went into the cart. It was not even a thought. I mean, it could have cost $50 and we would have put it in the cart. Alas, it's not $50. Thank goodness, because we're going through it kind of fast. But anyway, so this new cocktail, it's 2 ounces of vodka, so a shot of vodka, shot of peppermint schnapps, another 2 ounces, and then you fill the rest of it to the top with 7-Up. And It's like drinking a pomegranate soda that's just a little bit spiked, and it is delicious.
So we're clocking in at the first 4 minutes. So let's see where you are in 56 minutes. We don't know where.
There's a little more alcohol.
56 minutes.
Oh, it could be interesting, guys. And I have done podcasts completely trash before. Just go check out the Ready Room 69 on Trek FM, and you get a one-woman act play of narrating Star Trek 4.
Oh my God, I gotta see this. Also, I understand that one of my former co-hosts on the Fandom Podcast Network, Kevin, and John, you may have actually, and I'm not proud of saying this, you may have heard me in probably some of my worst podcasting form when I did this. I did this 2-part episode on the character called the Kurgan. and I hit it a little hard in the first part of this because we did a 2-hour show. So the first hour was
Ooh.
fine. The second
Uh-huh.
hour was apologies to everybody type of
Oh
show. So,
no.
including Kevin and his fiance Erin, who was also part of the show. So hey, that's
Oh,
live TV, man. You know what are you
oh
gonna do?
wow. That's when you start drinking alcohol like you should be drinking water. Yeah, that's what happened to me with that episode of The Ready Room. Like I went through probably half of that bottle and I didn't even realize it. I was just going, having a jolly good time, way too jolly good of a time. And then, whoa, lo and behold, needless to say, I did not feel very good the next DMing a couple of people like, wow, I'm really sorry about that. But you know what? To Chris Jones's credit, the host of the Ready Room, he edited it down to where it was kind of magically funny. He embraced the moment. He let it be, and he cut out the really awful stuff toward the end where I'm not exactly coherent. So, it's for what it is. It was a moment in time. A
It
moment
was
in
a moment.
time.
Yeah, yeah. We aren't proud of these things, but they are part of history because we are published out there.
We like to drink. We really do.
Okay, so John Powersock says it was really bad. It was. Now, Daniel Keller, am I allowed to out you on this name, Daniel Keller? Because I know who you are, and it's hard for me to call you Daniel. I don't know where
Why did
Char
I
went.
have to die?
Where did Char go? Char's
Live
picture list.
broadcast,
There we go.
everybody. It's so much fun.
Anywho, when we get his response back,
Mm,
he goes, "LOL, Norm, what Blood of Kings episode with that? That was the episode
well,
with the Kurgan. So check out the 2-part episode with the
okay.
Kurgan. But that's not why we're here. We're not here to talk. Well, we are here to talk a little bit about alcohol because we are in the Zocalo, and the Zocalo has that awesome bar, and that awesome bar serves awesome drinks, and that's what we're doing right now. So
That's right.
let's pick into Legend of the Range. But before that, our salutatory toast to
Ooh.
all of our listeners out there. Valtu.
Ah.
I'm being completely boring tonight and just having my normal Brevari. Brevari in my cabinet just kind of sprouts up like trees. You know, the bottles just like never go anywhere. They're just there.
Hey, you know what? So be it. There is nothing wrong with that
You know, the
whatsoever.
funny thing is that when I open up my liquor cabinet over there, if I were a parent, my kids would raid that so hard, just raid it.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Teenage norm clones. Oh, they'd have a lot of
yeah.
fun.
Perish the thought.
Mm.
I'm terrified of that. So,
It's
anywho,
probably good we don't have
yeah.
kids.
Well, we have furry babies, all right?
We do. We have fur babies. I think one of which is joining us
I saw
tonight.
one.
You can see him in the very far corner.
Oh
He may or may
yeah,
not look at
yeah,
us.
yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Laffa.
Aha, very good.
Yes. All right. So,
Let's jump
shall
into
we
it.
get into Legend of the Rangers? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So, written by J. Michael Straczynski. Big surprise there. Director, music by
Right.
Chris Frankie. We're back to Chris Frankie. Just putting that out there. And produced by Ron McLeod, Douglas Netter, and J. Michael Straczynski. Originally aired January 19th, 2002. So, as you and I were talking before the show, Norm, this is this is after the fallout with Crusade, and this is another try to kind of resurrect the energy for more Babylon 5 universe content.
Right. Right. Didn't Crusade, or at least a Call to Arms, which was the previous mini movie that we watched, and that was a TNT production. This isn't a TNT production. This is a Sci-Fi Channel production.
Correct. This was basically commissioned to be a pilot for the Sci-Fi Channel and potentially to be picked up as a series, as pilots do. And we know now it was not picked up. We'll get into some of the reasons why later on. As a little bit of just a quick DB. After being retreat from combat, Ranger David Martell is given command of the Leandra, a haunted 20-year-old Minbari fighting ship. He's escorting ambassadors to a secret archaeological site, the oldest city on record, and a clue to a dangerous ancient.
Now,
So, in a nutshell,
this
that
is the
really is what
what?
this is
The
about. They're
second.
ferrying diplomats. What is this? Star Trek: The Next Generation?
It's not just as kind of vanilla as that. I think there's a little bit better than that, Shar. Don't you think?
Okay.
I got Shar on time delay. Something's happening with the sunspots or the jump gate. But yes, Shar is right. The premise of this particular episode was that one of the Rangers, the Ranger David Martell. I'm sorry, Shar, you just caught up with me. So
Okay, hi. Our first bad glitch. Darn it.
that's okay. This is, like I said, this is live. One of the things that I really enjoyed about watching this, rewatching this again, and I haven't in a long time, is that maybe is kind of like Enterprise, maybe with like the distance of time and watching more of Babylon 5 and taking the universe as a whole. There's something, I don't know. There's just something that connected with me a little bit more. Getting getting used to like ragtag type casts and crews, and having the little ship that could, because with Farscape that did that well for 4 seasons, and then with Firefly that did it well for their 13 episodes plus a movie. Those kind of stories are really compelling because it's the crew depending on itself, depending on each other, even if they don't even really trust each other or necessarily like each other, but they have a mission and they have a goal. I just started watching an old BBC British Broadcasting Service TV show from the 1970s called Blake Seven. And that show also has a very similar premise where you have all of these people that join a ship, have a mission, have to get through the mission, are confronted with a problem, and then they have to come together and be victorious at the end, I guess. So
Yeah.
that's, I think there's a very honest, it comes by honestly quality to the show. And I think part of the reason why is that a lot of people from Babylonian Productions came on board with the show. Like you said, it was written by J. Michael Straczynski. The score comes from Christopher Franke, who we didn't get in Call to Arms or Crusade.
Correct.
So it's nice to have him come back. We also had in production, we had Douglas Netter come back. Ron McLeod was new to me. Mike Vehar, obviously, director extraordinaire. And there's somebody I wanted to mention here because being a big Highlander fan, the production designer on this show was not John Copeland. His name was Stephen Gagan, and he was one of the production designers for Highlander, the TV show, before Babylon 5. So,
okay, cool.
What did you think of that? I wanted to kind of jump into the look and the feel of this. Did you feel like you were still in the Babylon 5 universe?
Oh, yes and no. Like, they got the band back together, but they're trying to be a new-ish thing. So some things really do feel familiar, others really don't. Like the fact that this is not exactly a pretty ship. In fact, it's quite ugly and it's meant to be that way. And I'm just thinking, boy, what I wouldn't give to see a white star right about now.
This was pre-White Star. I mean, this was like a...
What? No.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no.
This was in service 20 years. The Leandra was in service 20 years before. This was before the Battle of the Line.
Really? I thought it was no. John Bowersock says 2265. It's basically like a few years after Babylon 5.
But the Leandra was in service all those years.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is they, if they weren't going for the ragtag kind of angle, they would be on a nice, pretty ship. But this is the little ship that could, and it's haunted. Hey, why not? And yeah, so of course it's not the nicest thing because this guy kind of has to regain his honor and all of that. I mean, I get it. It's just the look and feel. Yeah, it's a little grittier than usual. Even I guess is what I'm trying to say.
That's what the thing is about pilots, is that pilot episodes, not that pilots of ships, pilot episodes, is that you're getting kind of like a very vague vocabulary. Nice alliteration there, of what could be. We don't know like how we don't even know if the Leandra would have survived something. Like it could have been like in season 2 when usually great things happen and they project themselves into a third season. Like the Leandra could have been destroyed, could have been refit. It could have turned into a white star or something, or he could have gotten something like maybe the Valen 2. After the Valen was destroyed, they probably would have maybe gotten the next ship. Who knows,
Sure. Well, and of course, the White Stars have been through quite a bit at this point, and so they might be scrapping at this particular point to be making new ships and whatnot. So you kind of get what you get at this point. Now, I do find it interesting that after Crusade tried and failed with I kind of consider Crusade to be a kind of ragtag group of misfits too. Gideon is not your typical commander. You've got kind of loose cannons like Dorina, and you've got Galen, and they're kind of off doing their own weird things here and there. And this is even more of a the ragtag thing, but to see them try that a little bit in Crusade and be a little eccentric, and then do it again, I find interesting. Instead of going for the classic hero angle. Now that said, though, one of the greatest impressions I got out of a lot of the characters uh, with Captain David Martell. Well, is he a captain? I don't know. Anyway, with David Martell, he's a little Sinclair, he's a little Sheridan.
Mm-hmm.
You
He
know?
is he is captain in effect because in the star naming ceremony he labels himself as captain.
Okay, all right. I didn't know if
Yeah.
I was just making that up. The
No,
Bravari is kicking in already, and I've had just a couple of sips.
Hey-o.
So, yeah, he wants to be part of something bigger than himself, a la Sheridan, and he's looking for something. He doesn't know what, a la Sinclair.
Right. And I see a little bit of Marcus in there also because Marcus also wanted to join a cause that was bigger than himself, and he wanted to find that. He was looking for something. Marcus was also kind of like looking for something, that place of belonging, like who he is, what does he want, where is he going, who does he serve, and who does he trust, right? So
right. I mean, the evergreen questions, they're all here, plus many instances of we live for the one, we die for the one, just in case we forgot it.
Okay, so I want to go into that next because there's something in there that struck me interesting and a little jarring, and to me, it was a forced point, and I'm not sure like how that would have served later on in the series. And this has to do with the opening credits. But before that, I want to jump into a couple of the comments. So Daniel Keller says, "Yeah, Norm, you can say who it is. This is Randy. This is my bro, Randy." So he has his Daniel Keller must be his 00, secret agent name.
Yeah.
Let's see. John Bowersock says this is Jakar's final appearance. Rest in peace, Andreas Goutsoulis. I will drink the F out of this for him.
Hell yeah. To Jakar, to Andreas.
Jakar says, tells David that no one in Babylon 5 is exactly what he seems. He previously told Catherine Sakai the same thing in Babylon 5 Mind War, 1994. Correct. You're absolutely right. Emily says, compared with Star Trek 2009 movie, David Martell and Delon's character type are very similar with young Kirk and Spock. I felt that kind of dynamic between the two. Like David Martell being very charismatic and kind of like very take the bull by the horns, and Delon being he's kind of like the counterpoint to David Martell's humanness, I guess, in a way.
A little bit, and they have to trust each other quite a bit.
Yeah, and they all served before on the ship, and again, this is going back to one of the things that I found interesting in the opening credits, and I'm going to go back to my notes because I don't remember them firsthand. But in the very beginning, David Martell, and he's first officer on his ship, and his ship is basically crippled in combat. It doesn't have any weapons. It can't fire back on the raiders, and it can't pursue them. So he does the most logical thing, even though it's antithetical to the Rangers' credo, and he runs. He runs from the fight, but saves his crew. So in the very beginning of the show, he says, "We are Rangers. We walk into dark places no others will enter." And then the Ranger or the Grey Council member pops in and says, "We do not break away from combat." And then it goes back on, and it goes back to the original credo. "We stand on the bridge and no one may pass." And then it goes back to that same council member. "We do not retreat, whatever the reason." And then it goes to, "We live for the one, we die for the one." Now, those two lines, we do not break away from combat, we do not retreat, whatever the reason, are not part of the oath. I just want to make that very clear. They never have been, and neither have those axioms of we do not retreat, we do not break away from combat. I have never seen that in the history of Babylon 5 ever executed in that manner.
It's okay. So did they just make this up for this particular thing? Because in the opening scene is the retreat. Yes. So are they just trying to make a really big point out of that?
I think they were trying to make the point that this is what David Martell did to put himself into this situation. And although that they are interesting points to bring up, they are counterpoint to, I think, what David Martell chooses to do throughout the course of his evolution as a character. Because remember, he says, "We live for the one, we die for the one, but we don't die stupidly."
Right. Right.
And then it kind of dovetails into what Jakar says, and only Andreas can deliver it the way that Jakar delivers it. He says, "We live for the one, we die for the one." It's funny how you put the emphasis on the second half of that line. Isn't it as honorable to live for the one? It's like, yeah, let's look at that way. Like Jakar says, it's easier to die and to absolve yourself of the responsibility, because living with the responsibility and duty is far more it's far harder to do than just to say dying just removes you from the obligation.
Indeed, indeed. Also, another thing I want to point out is one thing my husband has out to me, and I've not really been so privy to it as he has, but he has said that the Minbari are kind of a martyr like race. They will sacrifice themselves. Maybe that's why they emphasize die for the one so
Yeah.
much here. Yeah,
Well,
if there's a
that's
sacrifice to be made, they're going to step up and they're going to do it.
that's a really, actually really good point to make, because you're right, because the way the Minbari faith has established that their souls will re-enter other Minbari souls and perpetuate the next generation of Minbari. They're ready, willing, and able to do that as long as the cause is just, and that's what they're supposed to do. But
right.
Martell's human, and he's like, no, 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 we fight, and it's kind of like it goes all the way back to when Londo in the beginning was saying that that if the humans, if they didn't have guns, they used their knives and their bare hands, they fought with glory and honor. And he says, you could not help you move to tears. And they did this for 2 years. Like, yes, that's what humans do, right?
Yes, we hold on for dear life, survival at any cost.
Yeah, I mean, we scrap to the very end, whereas the Minbari, probably they die with grace and honor, but the purpose is still being served. So Martell's like, no, 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 no. I'm not throwing away these lives just because of this credo. But he was punished for it, and that kind of like that puts us into the thrust of the rest of the plot. So let's get to that.
Right.
Let's get to kind of like where this plot is taking us, and why.
All right. So, do you want to go through characters a little bit, or do you want to just do that as we go along with story points?
Oh no, let's talk about the characters. I mean, let's face it. I mean, this plot isn't setting anything on fire as a pilot. It's a very kind of it's not specifically a quest plot, even though it is, and it's not necessarily a journey plot. It's kind of like a mishmash of very standard narrative tropes. It doesn't really have any one particular thematic anchor point. It's just a bunch of really good ideas with, I think, very good character development for a pilot.
I'm glad you said that, because I think one of the biggest takeaways you can get from this pilot is that you do get a good, strong sense of the characters. I mean, first and foremost, we get a roll call as they're kind of, christening the ship with this crew, the naming ceremony and what have you. You learn a little bit about who these people are, maybe a little bit about what their ultimate desires are. We're going to probably delve into this as we go on later.
Nice pun.
Yeah. So, first impressions of David Martell. Did you like him?
Oh, I love David Martell.
Do you?
I've always liked it with a Dylan Neal. He has this great square jawed, all American kind of look to him, quarterback look. But
yeah, he does have that look. He's chiseled.
But he's not aloof in the fact that he knows he's a good looking actor. I think he plays wounded behind the eyes really well. I think there's a lot of earnestness behind him. And I do think that in the naming convention, the naming ceremony, where we get to meet all these characters, there is something that's chewing away at him. Like he's found his, I guess, his calling of his heart, but there's more. And that's why he says, I'm still searching for something.
Right, right. Yeah, you're right. He does have sort of like a hollowness to him, kind of like Sinclair did, where he's incomplete. And so, had we gotten a series, it would have been interesting to find out, one, what that was, and then two, how does he find it?
or who inspires him to do that. Maybe his crew does, but that's the thing is, we never really get that opportunity.
No.
I think we get with all the characters, we get a very good snapshot of who these characters could be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going to jump to a very small part of my final analysis and just say that this thing is full of potential. I mean, as
Mhm.
a pilot, in that sense, it does its job very well. It gives us a lot of things that down the road you can go in so many directions, and that's good.
Yeah. Well, I think because they establish and identify the characters, who they are, what their motivations are, especially the main characters, and
Yeah,
what their purpose is, and how they are interpersonal already, that in and of itself establishes a very good core where you can just go into different storytelling territories because you already have an investment and agency with the characters from this pilot.
certainly. Yeah, okay. I mean, my perspective on Martel, solid. Yet another human white guy, though. A little boring. It could have been a different direction, but hey, I mean, as far as leadership goes, he does seem like a good stand up, solid dude. So I'm on board with it. It's all right.
Mhm. Well, I mean, he does have layering to him. You saw him that he's not good in servitude. He's not patient.
Kind
But
of a
that's
young guy in that sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's where was it Durlan comes into play?
Dulon.
Dulan.
Yeah, he kind of checks him. He
Yeah.
does. And so they're very good and complementary for each other. I think you already mentioned that, but it's so true. And I think we would have really seen that play out more throughout the series.
Now I don't know this actor, this Alex Zahara as Dulan, but as far as him embracing what Minbari is, I think he did a really good job.
Yeah, he did fine. You know what's interesting is he reminds me so much looks wise of Lanier.
Yeah, he did remind me of a like
Whenever I see his face, if I didn't know that it wasn't Lanier, I would say, "Oh, Bill Mumy." No, no, it's not. Oh, wow. And it's not just the fact that it's another Minbari. No, it's the facial structure fitting with that Minbari makeup. But nevertheless, I
I think
mean, wow.
he channeled a lot of Lanier. I'd be curious to see if he watched a lot of Bill's performances.
Yes, I'd love to know if he studied because it really did seem like he was like maybe he's from Lanier's clan or something. Maybe is there a relation because it was so close.
Third Fane of Chijomo. Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they studied at the same temple. Who knows?
Maybe,
You
maybe.
know? Yeah.
So in the credits listing, we skipped over Andreas Katsoulis as Jakar, and
Wow.
as we pointed out earlier already, his last appearance in the Babylon 5 universe plays a pretty good role here. He's back from his little romp with Lita, and she's no longer here, is what he says. That doesn't
Very
necessarily mean
yeah.
she's dead, but we don't know what's going on with her. So that's interesting.
Very vague.
And yeah, since when does he have the ear of the Grey Council? That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's probably because he's been afforded a luxury being the advisor to the Interstellar Alliance the way he is.
Yeah, he's got some privilege
Oh, totally. I mean,
as a
he did write the
connector.
Declaration
Sure.
of he wrote the Declaration of Principles. I
I
mean,
mean,
he's
if
that
anybody
Jakar.
deserves privilege, it's him. Let's not be mistaken here, but it's interesting
But you
that
know
he's kind
what?
of playing political middleman between, say, the Grey Council and Sheridan and all these other people.
Yeah, but you know what I like about this is that in many ways, because you had such heavy hitters, say in A Call to Arms with Sheridan and Garibaldi and Lockley and even Zach up to a point,
Yeah,
because you have those particular characters and they have so much weight and and presence from the previous Babylon 5 series, is that they overshadow any of the new characters that are coming to that pilot because of who they are, just by the sheer
right.
nature of is their reputation precedes them. So when you
Yeah,
bring in somebody like Jakar, one character who has this great reputation, but they understate his influence just enough in this pilot so that the other characters can be who they are and evolve and have the spotlight thrown on them. And I think that it was really smart that they used Jakar in those really nice moments of wisdom and clarity and in character development, because Jakar is he's a wizard, right? He's
What?
Yeah. He is. He's seen so much, and again, it's just his presence alone, his name alone carries so much weight, regardless of him actually coming on screen. So,
It's
I,
true.
I think that's where this particular mini movie succeeds as a pilot and a mini movie, where the others they tend to be imbalanced in a way because there's so much Babylon 5 influence in the others.
Now, what did you think about seeing Babylon 5 at the very end?
I liked it, and I think that the shot that they used, which is just like kind of like this wide shot that showed the station, and it didn't show like a lot of ships surrounding it. It wasn't the close up of of the docking bay and the rotation. It was very understated, and I think it was okay to be understated because when you come to a pilot like this, especially when you were kind of like, content hungry, the way that most Babylon 5 fans were at the time, when you saw the station again, it was enough.
I think what they were trying to do was generate a hunger so that had this pilot been picked up as a series, like in Crusade, they would have occasionally gone to Babylon 5.
Oh,
So
of
I think there
course.
was major potential for that. They were trying to generate that interest. And I honestly wonder if it wasn't enough.
What, enough of
It,
showing
I
Babylon 5? Sorry, Shar, say that again.
some stuff on Babylon 5. I said, I wonder if a part of this should have actually taken place on Babylon 5 to generate interest among the fan base
You,
again. But then you're taking away
you know
from it
what?
being its own thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like
Right.
maybe later on, maybe like the second or third episode, but being there, being involved with the presence of Babylon 5, I think is just enough. You want it to stand on its own merits, and there's a lot of callback. I mean, even let's talk about a couple of the other characters here. Because we are surrounded by Rangers, and when it comes to the Rangers in the history of Babylon 5 as a show, we've seen kind of like bits and pieces of like the Rangers as this clandestine organization that works in the secret parts of known space or unknown space. But then you get Marcus, and Marcus is our first real uh, characterization of a Ranger that we can talk to and we can understand and we can identify with.
Right.
And then Lanier a little bit later on after that. But we never really kind of like get Rangers that we want to get, that we can lean on as in terms of what we want in our characters from an episode to episode basis. So let's see. I really like this character, and I know that when this first came out, a lot of people are like, this actress was trying too hard. She was trying to be every single female character at once. I disagree. I think she was amazing and a great counterpoint to both Martell and Delon. And that's this actress's name is Miriam Sorosis as Sarah Cantrell. I liked Sarah Cantrell. I thought she was fantastic. What did you think about her?
First go around, my first question was, why is she so angry? And I can see why people were turned off by that because it's that aggressive female hero type. I
Mhm.
totally get where people are coming with that. However, this character's from Mars. She has been a fighter her whole life. So, bingo.
Right?
We could have learned so much more about her. And I
Mhm.
think we would have come to a much greater understanding about who she is and why she is the way she is. And so, yeah, we just didn't get that chance.
But there were really nice nuggets of information, like in the naming ceremony, she says, "I live to serve, I serve to live." Really? You always say that. That moment was nice. I really liked it when she says that, today is a good day to die, and then Martell says, "With you, every
Now,
day is a good day to die."
you did like, oh my God, I
Love
could
that
not
line.
believe that. Now, okay, obviously Star Trek had not trademarked that phrase, but really? Really? I mean, I cringed. I got to admit, I cringed.
Well, I can't. So this came out in January of 2002. When did First Contact come out?
96. And it was,
First First Contact came out in '96. Wow.
yeah.
Well, I
Uh-huh.
mean, it's not a line that's necessarily owned by Star Trek.
That's what it's in a Klingon Empire. And if you're a Star Trek fan, that is one of those things. It's like Picard saying "make it so" or "engage." That is synonymous with Worf on Star Trek.
Yeah, but I'm not that big of a Deep Space Nine fan, so it doesn't bother me.
Hey, he was on TNG too, and in the movies, and.
Yeah.
Sorry, it made me cringe, and you can at me if you want.
I'll at you because not
At me all
everyone
you like.
because Babylon 5 fans and Star Trek fans aren't the same fandom.
I know. It's
You know.
fine. Yeah.
So anyway, but I like that line for what it was, and it was just maybe it was a dig because
Oh, maybe.
like B5.
But
It's
you know
not.
what? Yeah, Susan had a better one in
Yeah.
season 2 with the gift shop. We're not some deep space franchise.
Right.
That was a good dig.
Yeah. So I like that about her. I mean, she's just kind of like, and she's very hot tempered, and I like that. But especially now, I know that looking back on it, that it wasn't executed the best way. But this is a guy that loves rubber monsters from 1970s, science fiction shows. I loved the VR weapon system in this show. I mean, that's just I loved it. I think that it was why?
Norm. It's so impractical. Now I get
Why?
it. Because it takes so much physical exertion to make that happen, to be that in tune with the ship. I mean, it's a cool concept. It's a great idea, but every time they're in a firefight, she's just going to do these crazy gymnastics. It's going to kill the CGI budget.
But you're talking about it from a budget standpoint and not an actual if it was in real time standpoint. Now, here's my counterpoint to that. And the reason why I love it is because these things were built on Minbari technology. Minbari are very economical fighters. And coming from a martial arts background, the most economical and technically accurate fighters are the best fighters. Very little emotion, very little or masterful economy of movement. So imagine a Minbari, like Naroon's level of fighter in that pod for fighting. He would do things with such accuracy and precision and not even dropping a bead of sweat. That's why I love the potential for what that thing was, because she caused things to happen because she's too aggressive in there.
Okay, I mean, that's a very good point, and it illustrates that point. And culturally, it's cool because it is different, because it is Minbari. And we were going to get a whole lot of Minbari culture in this show, which would have been great. But I still side on the side that it's impractical, because wouldn't it just be a lot less of an effort to make your target, press, let a computer do it for you? I know it's boring.
I like the whole 360-degree range of movement where she can see things and just, I mean, her actions were in sync. Like there's no lag time, right? Like her thought created weaponry. That's what I loved about it.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems really weird. She's, punching away and it's firing the torpedoes or what have you. And I don't know if I could fully get behind it. I'm sorry.
I loved it. I loved it 100%. I thought it was like new for the time. I'm a little tired of button pushing stuff. I'm like, why can't this be a thing? It's alien technology. You should think about it that it's the possibility of a reality because it's alien.
Yeah, right? I mean, for the imagination aspect of it, I give it a 100%. For the practicality, it's a 50 tops for me.
And I wanted to see somebody come in and it's like, no, you're spending way too much energy. You're never going to survive a fight. I wanted her to kind of like learn through the course of that. It's kind of like the reason why Marcus, no matter how good of a pike fighter he was, he'll never beat a Minbari, because Minbari don't fight that way. Humans fight that way, right? Minbari are very calculating. They're very cold. They're very specific. They don't fight with, like I said, they fight with economy of movement. They fight with, I don't know. I could go on and on and on about it, but that's why. but it's like in that time in 2002, you're seeing things from basically a human perspective. And what if a ranger, because they were opening it up to different species at the time, what if a ranger was a Pakmara?
Oh, that could be interesting.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, the reason why I like that thing is because it's not specifically designed for bipedal organisms.
Well, it's optimized, you could say, for Minbari.
Or any really alien species that don't have to use fingers. And she could fire with her feet. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, I mean, that's kinda cool. Yeah, and it does require some serious skill, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It just seems really impractical to me. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned other cultures coming into the Rangers. This was a really cool aspect of it where you actually see a little bit of political prejudice maybe, where they aren't necessarily assigning Narn or Drazi recruits to the top of the line. They don't feel ready for that yet. A little bit of elitism much, Minbari? Hmm?
Hmm. And
Yeah.
I like how they gave that like David Martell's like, hey, look, we're kind of human Minbari washing everything right now, right? Like, aren't we supposed to be,
Yeah.
a little bit more interplanetary, interspecies with our ranks,
A little
right?
more interstellar alliance, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, can we jump over to Nafeel, our
Yes.
Narn engineer? I love her.
She reminded me a lot of Natoth.
Yeah, the girl's got attitude. She swears like a sailor.
Hmm.
I mean, what's not to love here?
Yeah, I think she was great. I think we missed an opportunity with her and Jakar, maybe, like a line or two that they could have had.
Mm, that could have been interesting, but
You know,
at the same time, I didn't watch this and think that was necessary.
yeah, it's just one of those wish list things.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
And speaking of our other alien, Gus Lynch as Turk, our Drazi guy who lifts big things.
Turk is like, do not, he goes, never, like never, I never want to give birth to another one of these things again. That's what Turk means.
Do
It's
you
hilarious.
blame his mother? Oh
That's
my
so
god, little
funny.
beef tank.
That's such a Straczynski line to put in there, right?
Yeah, I really do wonder what the plan was for Turk because he comes off as kind of like more of to use a Star Trek reference, a pack led. Do you
Yeah.
know what those are?
Yeah. We are
Yeah.
smart. Rah,
Yeah,
rah,
those
rah. Yeah.
aliens who like they just take technology from other races and don't know how to use it, for those who aren't aware. Um, there's more to him than that. He could not have gone through ranger training and just be a guy who lifts big objects and hurls them. No. Dude is way smarter than his initial outward appearance. And so I would love to have gotten to know this guy, the most underrated dude in this circle here, if you
Right.
ask me.
Yeah, and also with the Drazi, I love it when he met the Drazi ambassador because they were talking about stuff and they start shoving each other. It was so very Drazi.
It
I mean,
was
it was
so Drazi.
right.
That was so much fun because you didn't know if it was going to break out into a massive fight, but then it's like, nah, I got you, buddy. It's cool.
The
You
only
know,
thing that would have made it more perfect is if he was wearing some purple sash and that ambassador was
yeah.
wearing some kind of green sash. That would have been amazing. Because that's really only for Babylon 5 fans, right?
For real, for real. I was halfway waiting for something like that, and they got us a little bit there. They met us halfway.
Yeah, I liked his character a lot. Again, just the potential was there.
Yeah. Trivia point: the actor who played Turk, Gus Lynch, died in 2014. Sadly, he was very
Oh,
young.
mm,
He was 42.
Beyond the Rim.
Indeed, another
Hanging out
one
with our
beyond the
Beyond
rim.
the Rim.
Yeah.
So let's see. We got so we talked about Martel, Delon, Sarah, and Nafeel and Turk. So we have
Let's talk about Malcolm.
Malcolm Bridges, our resident. I guess he would have been kind of like Section 31, right?
Kind of, yeah, like super secret special ops kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was an interesting. What I loved about all these different aspects now of the Rangers is that you're seeing all their divisions. You have kind of like command, and you have weapons, and you have, I guess, his infiltration and interrogation, or kind of like black ops.
Yeah, yeah. Black
Oh,
Ops.
is that too on the nose because he was black?
No, not necessarily, because you don't really know what he's gonna pull out. I mean, he has the equivalent, I guess, of like an invisibility cloak, a la Harry Potter. I mean, who knows
Yeah,
what sort of toys he's got?
very interesting possibility there. I think the only thing about him that didn't ring true for me is that he just didn't look dangerous enough behind the eyes.
Well, maybe we would
You
have
know,
gotten that. But I do
maybe
think like he was kind of casual, but then maybe he is trying to just play it smooth. It's really kind of hard to tell with him if
not
it was
just
just bad acting or if it was, well, what's really going on here?
well,
Because
not
we
just
didn't get
casual,
enough.
but young. Like
Mm-hmm.
he was a little green. Like say, let's take the guy that played what's his name, Leland. In
Uh-huh.
Discovery. Like if you see a
Yeah.
guy like that, and you're saying like, yeah, he's covert, he black ops. You're like, yeah, I totally believe that. He just has a little bit of that danger behind
He
him. He has a
has
little bit of
that
age
season. Yeah.
seasoning.
Well, Yeah, what if with being young and maybe he is somewhat naive and he's got all these tools at his disposal, what if that leads to potential for mistakes because of inexperience?
Possible. Look at that.
I mean, that could have been an interesting guy to like just to see him stumble a little bit and have to deal with the consequences of his actions because I mean, hello, there's a Babylon 5 lesson for you right there.
And when he did run into Jakar, he didn't really know what to do. He kind of stumbled over himself. When he was in
He
that,
did.
when he was in the, I guess it was kind of like a changeling net, like what the Minbari used in all the way back to the Gathering. He wore that
Yeah.
changeling net.
Yeah,
To
some good callbacks really to Babylon 5, some subtle references, nice little Easter eggs for longtime fans.
What about Kitaro Sasaki, our navigator slash comms officer?
I didn't really get a whole lot out of this.
Yeah.
Really hard to tell. Could be a really interesting character, but I would say pretty badly overlooked here.
I think with all these characters, eventually you're going to get what I call you're going to get Ensign Mayweathered. You're going to get.
Why is it always the navigator?
I don't know.
Yeah, but really, it's sort of like it kind of reminded me of like Mr. Sulu on the original series. He's going to make a couple of smarty quips with whoever he's next to on the bridge, and maybe that's all we're going to get out of him in an episode here and there.
If there's one thing that I did like about Crusade is that all of the major characters in the crew did have a little bit more agency overall in the story than say like because Katara was basically he was young, he was green, he's like I'm just glad to be here, but we don't know what would have happened. He could have had a great role. He could have been he could have Tasha Yard out. You never know.
Who knows? Yeah, he might have been a red shirt.
Yeah,
and just gotten killed early on.
Right.
We really don't know.
Yeah,
but yeah, he didn't get a whole lot here. Anybody else we need to really mention?
No, I mean not in the okay, so the race, let's get into kind of like the villains of this episode.
Okay.
The Hand and their agent that was on board the ambassador's ship. So you have Kafta. That race. Now I saw this race before, technically after, but I saw this race before in an episode of Crusade, where they had kind of like an X-Files-y episode. It was really interesting. Remember that one? He was like dressed, he was smoking, and they're talking about that, aliens visited Earth and all that kind of stuff. Did you get me, Shar?
I didn't, sorry.
But we saw that. You remember that episode in Crusade where there was like an X-Files episode where that kid was like,
I remember.
Yeah,
I remember.
That was that alien race.
Oh, it's them. Oh,
yeah.
I did not make that connection. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't. Again, they may have been a bigger part like later on in Crusade, but let's talk about the Hand, because
the Hand
in Babylon 5, inevitably there's going to have to be this uber-powered ancient race that comes out of nowhere to destroy the known universe. That's right. Babylon 5.
Were you or were you not having shadow flashbacks?
Oh, totally. Totally.
Because I definitely was. Yeah, right. Yeah. I've got questions about this. All right. First off, okay, the super ancient race, what do they necessarily want with the younger races? Why do they need help from younger races if they are so incredibly powerful? What is the goal here?
It's very well possible that it could have been dying out from something, a plague or something that they just couldn't, some type of malady, so some type of calamity, something that happened to them that only the younger races can help them with. Or maybe it's kind of like the Shadows, like they use somebody like Morden, or they'll use somebody from these younger races to infiltrate. It's just easier to soften the beaches and then come in for the major attack. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, in one episode, we don't get to find out what exactly they want, but with it being almost like I don't know, I don't want to say they're clones of the Shadows, but they're awfully, awfully similar, just a little older even.
And that kind of takes me into the whole third space reference to that alien, that alien species. I don't even, what were they called? I don't remember what they were called.
Oh,
were they called
shit. I don't remember.
The Hand?
I mean, maybe I don't think it was, but maybe it was, or maybe they were friends in this very ancient age, like also the first ones and people like Lorianne who were back in this time.
Mhm.
Could we get more context on that maybe?
It's possible, but
You know, in an age before the Vorlons and the Shadows took over, was it these guys?
some of the things like these bigger themed ideas, like have this ancient power, this ancient darkness that's coming from parts unknown. That they've been woken up for some giant slumber, and now they're coming back. To wreak havoc on like the younger races. Yes, that's very Babylon 5, and Babylon 5 proper did that perfectly. But now you're dealing with a completely new era. You're dealing with a completely new network, new audience. The network of the sci-fi audience isn't necessarily the audience of the TNT run for Babylon 5 isn't necessarily the same audience from all the way back to 1992.
Right.
So I think that because of we're dealing with 10 years later, 92 to 2002, using these bigger themes kind of is something that a lot of creatives do because they need that theme to bring in a new audience, at the same time make it palatable for the old audience. But the old audience is going to kind of call foul on that, like we are. We're like, really, another Shadows?
Really? Yeah. Like, okay, we've seen this before. We know how it's going to break down. Yes. So, all in all, I mean, we didn't get a series. The pilot failed, and part of it was due in part to the fact that this thing aired on the Sci-Fi Channel alongside NFL playoffs in January of that year. So a lot of people just were not tuning in, and I think at this point, I'm sorry, Babylon 5 fans, I don't know if they cared. It had been removed just long enough to where I think people have lost interest. And also, especially coming out of Crusade, trying and failing to succeed, they're thinking, okay, we're so done.
Right. There's also a lot of competition out there at the time. I mean, in
Yeah.
2002, even if Enterprise wasn't, rocking the charts, on the Nielsen ratings, it's still
But it
Star Trek.
wasn't. It wasn't, Norm. It wasn't.
I know. I was saying, even if it wasn't, it's still Star Trek, and Star Trek will always be bigger as a brand.
Oh, of course. It has a lot more recognition. No
Right.
doubt.
So you have that. You have the. I can't remember the climate of shows that were on in the early 2000s, but I mean, you still had X-Files, you still had Star Trek, you still had things like other science. I can't remember all the science fiction shows in there, but there's a
Yeah.
lot.
There
I
were
mean,
a couple. Yeah. There were a couple more. And I'm not sure what else was airing on Sci Fi at the time. But all in
Firefly just
all,
came out. They
oh,
got axed
yeah.
by Fox. It's just there was a lot of stuff going on, and you're right. This was kind of like the last ditch effort to see if anyone actually even cared. That being, but
Hate to
that being,
say.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that being said, though, the production level of the show, it wasn't it wasn't cheapened, or they didn't skimp,
No,
on on the show.
no. I mean, it did look good, but kind of edging into my final thoughts here. I mean, there's a lot of potential with this, but it's all in all just okay as a pilot. I think for long-term fans, for people like us and our listeners, this was a great chance on paper. Uh, I mean, we should have been ecstatic about this. It's
Mhm.
about the Rangers. We love the Rangers. This was our chance to learn more about Minbari culture, Narn culture, Drazi culture, learning the deeper motivations of all of these characters, which they did a nice job of introducing to us. Um, I mean, we've got the unknown enemy and whatnot. So there's like kind of this bigger mission where it's going to put the Rangers in dark places no others walk, right? So they can collect intelligence. I see what they were trying to do here, but there's just something about this that doesn't fully grab me and say, yeah. Whereas
Yeah.
I think it should have.
But if you weren't so heavily tied into Babylon 5, making the comparisons that you're making, would it have?
That's a good question, and maybe not. This might have just been another generic sci-fi series, and like I just said a moment ago, I don't know what else was airing on sci-fi at this time, but maybe it wasn't enough to attract that general audience, people who are just tuning into sci-fi because it's sci-fi, like, "Oh, this is just another mediocre sci-fi show. Ugh."
You know what also was the biggest thing that was happening at the time? And
What's that?
I think this is why science fiction took a huge backseat in the early 2000s. There was Lord of the Rings. Everything
Oh, you're right.
between 2000, 2001, and 2002 was all about fantasy.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, we were kind of dealing with the aftermath of 9/11,
Mhm.
and Lord of the Rings was going through its set of movies. And in the meantime, this is about when superhero movies really started taking off. You were getting Superman, Spider-Man, all of that stuff, and we've been going since.
Yeah, I don't remember when some of the we were getting other like X-Men. That was a big
Hmm.
thing.
Right.
Going all the way back to like the what's his name? Like who played Wolverine? What was his name? I don't even remember this
Oh, I
guy's
don't
name
remember, but I
anymore.
do know that Patrick Stewart was an X-Men.
Yeah, the Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart X-Men. That
Yeah,
X-Men
yeah.
was going off. And then things like uh
Yeah, but stuff was
Fantastic
coming
Four.
out. You know,
Yeah.
this was kind of the very first big round of comic book movies really making it big, which has spawned everything that's happened since.
Yeah.
John Bowersock says sometimes not everything on paper works on TV. Yeah, I kind of feel like that's what happened here. It should have been a great idea. We should have just been gung ho about this, but I do kind of wonder, was it the wrong time? And was it just not quite what fans were looking for? Now
Well,
that said, I've got an idea. I want to know what you and our listeners, our viewers, think about this idea.
mhm.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay, a part of me wonders if David Martell should have been David Sheridan. Now, this would have required a different time frame than what we saw, but would that have been so bad? I mean, would that have maybe riled up the fan base and created more of a demand for this new B5 inspired series? Because in the same way that seeing TNG is the next incarnation of the Federation in the future to 20-ish year of John and Delenn, and Babylon 5 even. I mean, this might have been really cool. It could have showed the evolution of technology in this universe, where things were politically after Sheridan's death. And David Sheridan has always kind of been a little bit of an enigma. He's a
Mhm.
mystery. And this potential series could have changed that. We knew he was a ranger. And so could that have just the fact that it was him and him alone have generated enough interest to watch him go through these obstacles, watch him succeed and fail?
That's a really good question. And I think the reason why they maybe didn't do that is because at the time, I think that they were banking on the fact that they were trying to get a new audience that wasn't beholding to that level of lore for Babylon 5.
Well, here's a question.
Mhm.
Okay, the diehard fans know who David Sheridan is, but if you just introduce him as this guy, David Sheridan, would that have been enough to a general audience? I mean, just as much as David Martell.
Uh, it's again a good question, but I don't know. It's like it's hard to say with just like one episode because I don't really know what his motivations are. And
Yeah.
uh, sure, I mean they mentioned David Sheridan. With you had the keeper, you could brought the Drakbach, Drac. You could have brought the Drac. Wow, that was hard. The
La
Drac
la 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 la
back.
la.
But I don't know. I just don't know if maybe they wanted to make a clean break of like a lot of that history.
But
And I
then
know that.
why were they implying that they were going to go back and forth to Babylon 5?
Well,
If they
because
weren't going to go to that well, if you're going to go to that well, go to that freaking well.
no, I don't agree with that. I mean, it's like you can put Babylon 5 in there, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a big player. It's just part of the universe. It's just there. It's like you can tell.
Yeah,
It's like Deep Space Nine. You don't have to go to Deep Space Nine all the time if you're in TNG just because Deep Space Nine is there.
of course, of course. But the message I got from this pilot was that they were going to kind of intermingle with Babylon 5. I mean, where Marcus was going off and on the station all the time, so were these guys
No, they
to
were serving
exchange information.
they were serving the Interstellar Alliance at this time. It's just at this time they were dropping off Jakarta Babylon 5, but they
Yeah,
weren't. And then they definitely wanted to show Babylon 5 because they wanted to bring in that fan base. But I don't think Babylon 5 was going to be a big part of the story, in my opinion.
respectfully, I disagree, sir. But we can agree to
Yeah.
disagree.
But I mean, just showing one shot of Babylon 5 makes it a big player in a pilot.
Not a big player, but I think there's a lot of implication there where if you're going to go for that, you had better show more of it because you're going to create that hunger for the diehard fans who want to buy. So, and there was that opportunity.
Well,
I
you
mean, would Tracy Scoggins have been game to do even more scenes as the commander of Babylon 5? She was still captain of the station at this point. I mean, there was potential, sure.
but you do that. But the thing is that you balance that with not abusing that part of it.
Of course. So in the same way that Crusade did, where they were occasionally on Babylon 5, not always on Babylon 5, but a couple episodes throughout every season, sure.
Well, I mean, that's fine speculation, but I think that the Legend of the Rangers would have been better served if they don't hold to that, because it's using Babylon 5 so much and leaning on it so much means that it's not trying to create an identity for itself, in my opinion.
Right. Well, yeah, I kind of feel like in a way, maybe Crusade might have used Babylon 5 as a crutch. This show might also have fallen into that same trap. But when you have that parting end shot, it gives a lot of promise that, yeah, this is a Babylon 5 show. This is not going to be the last time you see Babylon 5.
No, I agree, and it shouldn't have been, but I just don't think it was going to be very central to the overall story of the Rangers. I wanted to see them out on the frontier doing frontiersy stuff.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that they shouldn't have because that is where they belong. But
Yeah.
I mean, I got that sense that there was going to be a presence of Babylon 5 somewhere throughout the season, much in the same fashion as Crusade, where
Sure.
they're off on their own for the majority of the time, but every now and then, just to make the fans happy, they're going to have something to do on Babylon 5.
Oh, absolutely. You have to do that. I'm not saying that at all.
Okay,
It's
that's
just
all
like,
I'm
yeah,
saying, buddy. That's all I'm
yeah,
saying.
no, I get that. It's just that I think that when you do that, you have to have a really good reason, and you have to showcase
Of
that really
course.
well.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all I'm saying. And I'm sure, I mean, knowing Joe, he would have found a way to make that work seamlessly. I mean, in the same way that um, we saw it. I mean, it was pretty natural on Crusade. It was some of the best stuff on Crusade was on Babylon 5, if you ask me. So I don't think there would have been a problem there.
No, but at the same time with Crusade, like you said, if you go to the well too much, you might as well just say like, oh, well, the reason why this show is doing so well is because emotionally we're attached to Babylon 5, so it's gonna have to be a good, right? It's like
Yeah,
you forgive
right.
you forgive a lot, when it's kind of like,
Yeah.
in any of the Star Trek shows that we love, are the shows that showcase the other series and make reference, are they really that good, or does our emotional connection make them good?
Right. In a lot of ways, it's both, hands down.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But if you took, okay, let's go to, because it's like, this is the reference of Deep Space Nine. If you take, like, there's no reason that Picard needs to be in that episode at all. None.
But
Right?
it's that proverbial passing of the baton, right?
Sure. And I get that. And it's great. And it's done well. But if you take that out of the episode, it changes nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So, but you put that in the episode and it makes it the emotional stake higher.
Sure.
Right?
Because we know who he is. We
Right.
want to see him. He's here. Okay, well, maybe I'll check this out.
And arguably, that's one of the best scenes in that episode. But is it really a good scene, or is it an emotionally great scene?
Yeah. Well, yeah. How much of it is just our nostalgia and our love as an audience versus the power of the scene itself?
Right.
For that, I would still argue a little bit of both. I feel like it always is a little bit of both. When you've already got an emotional attachment, you can't count that out. Period.
Yeah, but the thing is that they know that. Writers know that.
Well, that's why they do it. Yeah.
Right. That's why they do it. Right. So
Yeah. Well, okay. And we're over time, Norm. Should we start closing up the show?
I guess, but it's so much fun.
I know we are having a good time. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a shame that this pilot didn't get picked up, but I really do have questions about the longevity of it. Had they actually given this show a season, I feel like it would have been Crusade all over again. And then what?
It really depends on the powers that be, because really, what happened with Crusade? I mean, it died on the vine because TNT just didn't know how to market a science fiction show.
Right.
So sci-fi at that time also didn't really know how to market their science fiction shows. It was in huge turmoil. I
It
mean,
was a mess.
yeah, Sci-Fi Channel was a mess because they started doing a bunch of things. I mean, at least it wasn't. It was still sci-fi. It wasn't sci-fi, SYFY, right?
That was the ultimate culmination of all of this crap
Right.
that was going on leading up to that moment. Yeah. Oh my God.
But
Sci-fi.
when Sci-Fi got their stuff together and they put on things like Dark Matter, and some of these other shows, they were really good. But they started falling prey to, again, doing like the Sharknado thing, and that's never really good
Right.
for anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor sci-fi. They've really dropped the ball on a lot of things. There's so much potential for good work, but they've squandered it.
So one final thing, Shard, is I want to ask you this. Can I put this in the banner here at the
Yeah.
bottom? The Legend of the Rangers, legendary or lackluster?
It's neither for me. It is right in the middle. It is just okay. It is not legendary. It had the potential to be legendary had it
Mhm.
gotten a season or a few. And it's not lackluster. It's not like it's awful, but is it great? Is it catchy? Is it making me really wish that there had been a whole lot more? No.
Is
How
it
about you?
is it lack legendary?
It does lack the legendary aspect, yes.
Do you
Yeah.
think in 5 years it could have been amazing?
Yes, I do. I think it had that potential.
Okay, I think so
Yeah.
too. I
Yeah.
think it had good bones. I mean, the bones were good. They weren't quite there, but I do think that. And let's take a little bit more time because no one says
Okay.
that we have to be an hour. And I wrote this to you in a private message, but we might as well air this out because you said at me.
Okay, yeah, at
So
me. Go.
I think, with the exception of In the Beginning, and I think that In the Beginning is solely successful because it borrows a lot from the history that we've already seen of Babylon 5. So
Mhm.
take that out of the equation. You have Third Space, River of Souls, and Call to Arms, and Legend of the Rangers, and Lost Tales.
Uh-huh.
In my opinion, I think that Legend of the Rangers is definitely better than Call to Arms as a pilot.
Agreed.
I personally like it more than River of Souls because River of Souls it's nice, but it doesn't really go anywhere for me.
Yeah, okay, I could see that.
And on any given day, I can actually toss that up between Third Space and this. And this is where you had a point of
Yeah.
contention with me.
This is where I've got a bone to pick with you.
Yeah, and I
You're
said
putting
it's a
this above Third Space?
yeah. Well, no, I didn't say that. I said any given Sunday, it was like a hair of a difference for me.
No.
And this is why. I'll give you my reasons why.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think as a production, I would much rather watch Third Space than this. But I do agree that it is a better production and much more interesting to watch than A Call to Arms. And maybe I would put it over River of Souls. I think River of Souls has the Babylon 5 universe going for it. And the fact that Lockley and Tracy Scoggins are so strong in there, plus its strong guest star roll call is so good. But I cannot put it above Third Space. No, no, I
I don't
simply
think it's
can't.
I I like it more than Third Space for the sheer fact that I'm seeing new things. In Third Space, I didn't see anything new. It's fantastic. I mean, it has Sheridan. It has great Sheridan hair. You know me. I love
Oh,
great Sheridan
totally.
hair.
Yeah, I mean, prime
You know,
Sheridan
E- everything
hair.
everything in Third Space is right on the level Babylon 5 quality.
Right.
But I
And
like
that's
seeing
why I enjoy it, I think. It's because it's not necessary Babylon 5 watching, but it is good classic Babylon 5, a self-contained tale through and through.
sure, and it could have been a great two-part episode. It's a great, it's episodic, but I when I watch Legend of the Rangers, I feel like I'm seeing something new. I'm seeing new things. I'm seeing a new production design. I'm seeing I'm a big thing for I have a big thing for production stuff. So I love it when I see ships that are just falling apart and they have to kind of like, strap it all together. I like seeing like the new alien designs. I just like seeing new things. And even though that I still have some issue with the narrative quality of it because it doesn't have a lot of peaks and valleys. It's very vanilla as a plot. I
Yeah.
do like the fact that I can invest myself in new characters as opposed to kind of like ride the norm, no pun intended, with old characters. I know that I'm going to get quality from Claudia, from Bruce, from Steven first, from Lita, and Lita's the standout for me in third space because she has
Yeah,
such a great role.
it's good
But I
stuff.
know that they're going to be great. I didn't know that these people were going to make me invest the time into caring for them, and they did. And I found that subvertive to my own expectations of why I like this. Right? It
Okay.
could have, to make a finer point, they did in Legends of the Rangers, where I think that they actually failed a lot in Discovery, Star Trek Discovery, where I know every single character's name that means something in one episode, and I don't even know any of the characters' names or all of them in Discovery from 2 seasons. And that's important to me. I need to know the characters, and I need to know why I stand behind them.
Well, yeah. I mean, you and I have both watched the show. We have different opinions on that show. But that's not to say that I don't find faults with it either. Although I think I'm enjoying it more than you have.
Mm.
um, yeah, this pilot didn't grab me that much, but did it have potential? Abso-fraggin-lutely.
All right.
Yeah. I think really, had they given this show even one season, we might have been blown away.
Yeah, I would love to continue this conversation. Like, even if we had half a season, 13 episodes like Crusade had, it would have been a much more introspective look at the show.
Probably. And there would have just been so much cool stuff to explore with culture. I mean, we have a Minbari doctor.
Mhm.
How does that differ from having a human doctor, or does it?
We have healers, not even necessarily like they always call for
Yeah,
healers and not doctors,
healers.
right?
Right. Yeah. Plus, just the mentality of the Rangers, and you're getting into that Ranger culture, even. I mean, there's some good stuff here. There was a lot to explore. They had a great setup. It's just, uh, with what we got, I'd say a good 3/4 of it is solid, but ultimately it's not enough to say, yeah, pull that trigger. Let's go.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
And yeah, but yeah, but really, I think to an average eye, this is just another mediocre kind of pilot for a sci-fi series, which is why it didn't get.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's TV is so hard. The competition's so steep, and especially back then.
Right. It's
And
brutal.
you know what the sad thing is that at that time, if you weren't Star Trek on TV, you were nothing, really.
Well, yeah, it was really hard to make it as a sci-fi series. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it was even tough for Star Trek. I mean,
Right.
Enterprise wasn't lighting any ratings, stats on fire.
Oh,
But it definitely. I mean, it was a great series, and anywho, I guess for another conversation. So come back to me, Shar.
indeed.
Where'd you go?
I'm back.
Okay.
But
So
poor
anywho,
Enterprise just never really lived up to its hype.
maybe one day we'll do we'll go off topic for
What
a
we don't
segment.
all the time.
Kind of. We'll go really off topic. That'll be my like heavy Bravari night.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah.
Well, any other final thoughts you got to cram into this episode before we officially cut it off?
Well, no, I'll just do my like normal spiel. I just want to thank everybody for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this conversation on Legend of the Rangers, and I think that maybe one last final thought for both of us. Would you recommend people seeing this if they haven't seen it yet?
If you're looking for some Babylon 5 universe, absolutely give it a watch. Watch all that could have been and then weep because it didn't happen.
Right?
Yeah.
The epitaph for most of our Babylon 5 viewings, because when we cover the Lost Tales, it'll be the same thing. When we eventually cover like some other works, maybe even a book, maybe that might even give us a little bit more perspective on it. But at least until then, you can be a completist after the series, because you have these movies. We can go all the way back to the new cut of The Gathering, because there were 2 cuts of The Gathering. There was the original P10 cut, and then there was the TNT cut for The Gathering, which they think makes a little bit more sense. I'll have to watch them back to back to see if that actually is true. It's kind of like Star Wars and the Star Wars Episode 4 when they actually
Right.
retagged it like that, right? Didn't really
Yeah.
make much difference aside from the name. But and then so that, and then Lost Tales, and that really covers like the season 5 proper, the 5 seasons proper, plus the movies, and then now the Lost Tales, which was like the last, which you and I both really enjoy. So we're looking forward to doing
that
that.
last gasp. Yeah, we'll have to cover that week. You're going to be on vacation, sir.
I am. I'm going to be working on my tan.
That's going to be awesome for you. And meanwhile, I am making plans. Guest join me for topic will be the guest. So when I have that all set, I will make an announcement, and we will have our vidcast every Wednesday night as usual.
Very good, Shar. So, for all the people that are here and that have joined us, thank you very much. You can always find the Zocalo on now our new YouTube channel. So that's on a link in Facebook. It's also a link here in the show notes. You can also find us on the social medias where we try and post as much as we can on what's going on with our show. So you can find us on ZócaloCast on Twitter and on Instagram. And you can Gmail us any of the kind of the show ideas or topics that you want to talk to Shar about next week while I'm off working on my tan. You can Gmail us at zocalocast@gmail.com. You can find me on social media at Lounge Lizard, LAONGE Lizard, and that's on Twitter and Instagram. Shar, how can our listeners stay in touch with you?
You can find me on the Twitter machine, and my handle is the profanity.
We didn't get enough profanity tonight, so one night.
Oh, well,
if we don't break YouTube's algorithm for whatever.
I wonder, would it increase or decrease our viewer count? We may have to try.
I'll take a look at their fine print, but I think I've watched enough YouTube live chats to know that ain't a thing. So, we can bring the profanity.
Well, more bravado it is then.
I know. It's so sad.
Oh, my glass is empty as well. This is tragic.
It makes me sad. So, anywho, I hope you everyone enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time live here on the YouTube every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another episode of the Zocalo Live with Charlene Schmidt and me, Norman Lau. So until then, be seeing you.